Welcome to another episode of Leadership Talks by Advertising Vietnam and Precious Communications. My name is Lars Fudish, and today we will talk about from zero to hero, branding stories from startups. And we have a fantastic guest today with us. It's Hai from Rabity Kids. Welcome to the show.
Hi, my name is Trần Hồng Hạnh.
And you started the company. How old is the company? What got you started in it, actually?
My brand, Rabity Kids Fashion, is 9 years old already. So I started it in 2015 when I moved from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. And at that time, I was amazed with the dynamic market in Ho Chi Minh City. And I saw a gap in the market. At that time, the kids fashion was a blue ocean. When, for example, my colleges, when it comes to buy clothes for the kids, they could not find any trusted local brand in Vietnam, but they had to buy clothes from overseas instead. I found it very disappointing because as someone from the family with the tradition in tailoring, I understand that the quality of clothes made by Vietnamese is just as the same standards as international brands. And I decided to, at that time, to quit the corporate ladder to go back to the family business and transform it from a manufacturing firm into a retail firm. That's how Rabity was born, to win the local market and to go global.
So despite your family having been in there, you saw the market need, you called it a blue ocean, but what got you there? You said you were on the corporate ladder before. So what did you do before getting into what Rabity is doing now?
Okay. So I used to be an auditor and then the management trainee in Nestle, a food and beverage company. In Nestle, I was trained pretty well, and they taught me about the smiling curve. The smiling curve is a model developed by Stan Sy, the founder of Acer. It's like explain how different stage in the value creating channel chain add value to the products and the consumers. So at the lowest point, we have production. That was my family's business before. We was very proud of that we produced clothes, a lot of clothes for big supermarkets. But when I realized that it's actually the lowest value added channel, I decided to add more value to our products by moving up to the designing, R&D, branding, customer service. And we could only do that with our own retail brand.
Talking about brand, what sets your brand apart and what inspired it? Besides, we want to be in the market, there's an opportunity, but a brand needs inspiration. So what sets Rabity apart? What's the vision?
Well, a lot of people talk about brand as if it's like a part of the product. But for me, product and brands can stand alone. Everything starts with the products. We are very proud that we have the tradition in manufacturing. So we understand the product, we understand the consumers, like how they want the product to be. At the core of our business is the comfortability of the products. So we understand that the kids could only develop fully when they are allowed to discover the world around them. That's why we produce clothes with the best quality fabric, the softness. So the softest fabric, so that is suitable for the sensitive skin of the kids, and also very comfortable design that the kids can go out all day to the garden, to the zoo, to the park, to their grandma's house without feeling hot, without feeling uncomfortable about the clothes they are wearing. So we invest a lot in quality assurance and sourcing in order to have the most comfortable clothes for the kids. Together with that, we ensure that our products is always have the affordable price, because we want to provide a solution to the mainstream market of Vietnamese consumers.
You told me that you're a mom of two kids.
Yeah.
How much are you kind of the number one focus group of what the company does? And have you seen that also as a limiting factor because you're just one mom and your customers are hundred thousands of moms.
I see. Actually, when I started the brand, I didn't have kids at that moment. So all of the knowledge, the understanding of customer insight come from our research to the market. When we started, we didn't have like a great budget for that. So we do it with our in-house team.
Yeah.
We interviewed our consumers, our existing customers. We do surveys in order to understand their demands, what they need, what they look for, what is the ideal product to them. And then after that, when we have like a larger budget, we hire independent agency to do that.
What we've seen in a lot of markets, especially in Southeast Asia, is a challenge of price versus quality. Right or wrongfully, international brands are often seen as higher value, higher quality, can demand higher price. That's at the top end. Lower end, especially Chinese products, are getting into the market in volumes, price competition. How do you play in this kind of sandwich position? Or you think it's just the biggest part of the ocean?
I see. It's a very tough question. And how to balance between quality and price is always like the headache of the business leaders. For us, the very first principle that we don't compromise the quality with the price. It means that we focus on bringing the best quality products possible, and we don't lower our price. However, we still have to keep a very competitive price because nowadays we compete with foreigner competitors as well via the marketplace. That's why we are trying to make our business, the cost structure, as effective, like efficient as possible. We do restructuring. We do building the advantage in sourcing so that we have the best source possible for the input, the materials.
A lot of startups scale on technology because it's very scalable. With the industry that you are in, it's a very capex intense business.
Yes.
You need to have a lot of upfront cost for production. You have inventory costs and you have the retail costs.
Yes.
How do you scale on that? A lot of businesses just produce but don't do the retail. Or when they go into retail, they go through franchise products or models to scale quickly. Where do you, what's the path that you have chosen?
Well, earlier we talked about cost structure, right? And in our cost structure, the rental cost takes up to like the largest part. So the thing is always with the retail chain, it goes down on how to manage the cost in the stores. Earlier, before the pandemic, we used to have 80 stores, so a very big numbers. But then we cut it by half. Currently, we have just over 40 stores nationwide. However, our revenue at the moment is that more or less the same as what we did before the pandemic. What we did is we cut down the small shops. We leverage from the big stores, store with good visibility and good assortment. So the first key thing is to understand the health of each stores, to know which one to invest in and which one to drop. And the second one is understand our customer in order to offer the best assortment. Because you mentioned about inventory, right? Inventory is cost, right? So the decision is it can be quite tough sometimes, what to sell, what not to sell, what to sell there and what not to sell there.
And so you are a startup in a traditional business. What do you take from your family business that had been manufacturing? What pieces did you take from the large global player like Nestle? And what do you take from other startups like, like the tech startups, the Ubers, and these kind of things?
I see. I was very flexible. I'm still now flexible because it's like play around with different resources that we have. As a family business, we have the foundation in manufacturing. So what I need to do is to leverage that core strength how to deliver the best products, and how to communicate so that the audience, the consumers, understand that. What I learned from big corporates like Nestle is how we can manage with the management techniques, how to drop out the organizational chart and build up different procedures, different process, so that we don't need much effort in day-to-day work. Rather, we focus on innovation. And for startup, I have a strong network with a lot of people in startup and understand the way we do risk management and the way we try to manage between, like, among the limited resources that we have. And how to, yes, the burden of startup is to scale, right? How to balance between the urge to scale and manage the risk of that.
If you could start again, what would you have done differently?
Wow. I haven't asked myself that question. What I could do, I don't think that there is anything that I would like do again, because as you know, we made a lot of wrong decisions. That's how we make right decisions, right? If we know beforehand that there would be the pandemic, I wouldn't open so many stores, of course. But when the pandemic came, it taught me so many lessons. And one of that is the philosophy of our business. The reason why during the pandemic, a lot of key players in that field, a lot of competitors failed and they closed their business forever. But we can survive after such tough time is because we have a strong belief in the values that we can bring to the consumers and the values we can bring to our employees. And in the end, the pandemic taught me how to, understand the business, understand why we are doing this, and that's it. So I wouldn't make any different decision because without that I could not learn the business philosophy.
Every business is not run by one person, but a team. How do you make sure it's not just your company, but there's a whole team driving it, aligned to the same vision?
I have a very typical answer for every success is that it's a team effort, because without the team, I cannot do anything. What we do is, so we try to build up a corporate culture where everyone can make a decision, like involved in the decision. So for example, when we fashion, one of the very top decision for fashion is that the designing team will offer a lot of different models for the next collection, right? So we cannot produce everything. We can just choose a certain percentage of them. Earlier, it used to be the business leaders and only the managers can make decision which one to produce and which not. Later on, we have a section where all of the latest designs are presented to everyone in the company, including even the salesperson in the store. So we have some kind of survey and vote, and we vote for each models. Of course, each employees have their, we have a kind of scale to accurately evaluate the voice of each one. But that is one of the way that we persuade everyone, that we show them that they have a voice in the business, in the decision.
How often would you say you personally get right what will sell or not versus the team's decision?
How? Well, I think versus the team. Actually, I'm not very confident all the time. You know why? Because in the business, the one who understands the consumer most is a salesperson at a store who spend 8 hours, 10 hours a day staying at the store, looking at the customer, asking, talking with them, chit-chat with them about the weather, about the kids, about their daily routine. So I believe, and time to time, I tell them that the salespersons are always the one who understands customer, get close to the customer And what I need to do is to gather knowledge from them, the salesperson from the north, from the south, from different areas. Then do a lot of work with also the market survey, the market research, and have the understanding overall. But when it comes to specific location, specific store, specific customer, then I will rely on the salespersons.
Let's talk about the power of brand and executing strategies for growth. How do you see what's the ideal customer for you, and how do you keep them engaged from when you were a very young brand to now a more established brand?
The ideal customer. I remember when we was a very small brand. So the most effective marketing tool we figure out is word of mouth. So our ideal customer is the one who is not only loyal to the brand, but also being a brand ambassador. Nowadays, after we realize that fact, we design some loyalty scheme, and we even have some scheme that reward for the customer who introduce new customers.
So other than word of mouth, what have been the most effective marketing channels to grow the brand and the business back then, and what might have changed now?
What I assessed is one of the most effective way to raise brand awareness is the location of the stores. Because as you know, our business model is a retail chain. We have different shops in different locations. From the start, we choose to be in the shopping malls, very big shopping malls like Vincom and Aeon. Currently, we have stores in all the best shopping malls in Vietnam. So shopping malls is when a typical family would spend their weekend to, the kids will go to different schools, the family go eating and go shopping, and it create the brand image. So it's like any brand who has store in big shopping mall would be an upper scale brand, and also very close to the family, just like a neighborhood store that they can turn to time. Later on, we also had stores in busy streets and busy intersections. The accessibility may be difficult, but I find that the visibility is great in the intersection, where everyone needs to stop like 30, 40 seconds in front of your shops.
You touched on the power of getting kids excited and families, but how would you rank kind of the buying decision power of the mom, the kid, the husband, and the parents or the grandparents?
The majority of our customers, like the buyers, are mothers. Fathers sometimes, but father is easy to deal with because easy to be persuaded. So I think there are two key stakeholders in the decision made. The first one is the mother, and the second one is the kids who use the product. In our business, we do segmentation within the target audience, the target customer. So for products for kids under 5 years old, the decision is solely made by the mother. And they tend to look for the comfortability, the quality of the products rather than the design. But as the kids get older, for example, over 5 years old, their fashion taste become more, sophisticated, and they have stronger voice in the decision whether to wear this or that. So for products for kids over 5 years old, we need more research. We need more update to the trend. And that is one of the reasons why we decided to buy the license from Disney, so that we can offer, the Elsa, Spider-Man image on our products, and the kids will ask the mothers to buy for them.
So how often do you use, voluntarily or not, also your daughters as a kind of focus group? Do they volunteer to give you feedback all the time, or do you ask them?
So my daughters are 4 and 6 years old, so they don't give feedback, but they do, they have some habits and some preference that I can observe and see it as a preference for the business. I just take them to the shopping malls. We go to different shop, like fashion stores, and then I stand there and observe how they will choose between different products, the way they are attracted by different colors.
Have you brought them to your competitor's store and learned something on what your daughters did there?
Yeah. It's funny. So I took them to international shops, for example, H&M, Zara, and see how they will react with different models. Kids from 6 years old, they are easily attracted by the colors of the products, and then the image, whatever, the printing on the t-shirt, on the dress. And that's where I figure out, wow, these are the colors that attract to the kids, and these are not.
Okay. Let's talk about how do you build relationships with multipliers, with KOLs, with influencers? So do you purposely reach out to momfluencers, or do you have celebrities as part of your brand strategy? Or is it purely good old-fashioned, traditional, above-the-line marketing?
Interestingly, we used to have a lot of popular actors, singers, MCs use our products. We didn't do it as an intention, but I don't know, maybe they are introduced by some of their friends, or maybe they just pass by our shops and they use it and they feel good about our products. Then they give us kind of earned media when they promote, or their kids wear our clothes and then they post it online. We did some collaboration with KOL and influencers. However, because we need to manage the cost structure, so it's not always the case. What we do is we keep the relationship and we send them like gifts for the kids in special occasion, Mid-Autumn Festival, Lunar New Year, and so that they, when they feel satisfied with the product, they will voluntarily post it online. Recently, we have a network with smaller, like micro-influencers and KOLs, where we use the same technique.
Sharing some of the learnings of your journey, what do you think were some of the most significant challenges as a business, as a brand you've gone through, that and doing mistakes that maybe other brands other startups can avoid?
So the biggest challenge that Rabity faced is the pandemic. And that is the way I learned that the decision what not to do is sometimes more important than what to do. For example, we need to make the decision of whether we have to cut totally a certain market. Before COVID-19, we used to invest in small provinces. We have stores in like a second-tier provinces. But then after that, when we figure out that the consumers in these areas cannot have the buying power after the financial crisis and after the pandemic, then we decided to focus solely on the big cities and on big stores. It's kind of restructuring our distribution channel.
How do you see growing the brand and business from here onwards?
From here onwards, what I'm pretty proud of that we built a brand from literally zero to a brand that has certain awareness in the market. There is still a lot of room to develop in Vietnam. I believe that the next step would be to further penetrate the local market in urban area as well as rural areas. We also plan to expand some product lines and sub-brands. For product lines, we now have shoes, sandals, footwears, together with clothes. And for sub-brand, we are thinking of brands for kids from upper 10 years old. And after that, we believe that we are now very motivated to go overseas. We have a franchise in Cambodia. It's a very small start, but it's reinforced our belief that the fashion taste of Asian consumers are more or less similar, so that what sells well in Vietnam can also sell well in other Asian markets.
So what comes after Cambodia?
We are researching Indonesia and Philippines.
Excellent. Fantastic. One question I have to ask is, and we see that especially in Southeast Asian countries a lot, growing a startup out of a family business. Mm-hmm. How do you manage the dynamics with your parents' generation that come from a different time with a different vision? Mm-hmm. How do you balance when you make decisions and when they make decisions?
I see. Yeah, it's a very tough work to do. And actually we have a lot of, I call it like bar meeting over dinner in order to decide what to do next. So we have quite a lot of arguments from the start when I decided to open a retail brand, having a very new business model that my parents didn't think of. But then at the moment, the retail business take up like a very, like the majority part of the company revenues. And I guess that I already built the trust from my stakeholders, my shareholders, so that I have more influence in the business.
So how do you stagger or phase building that trust? Because hardly anybody directly gets the key to the castle at the first day.
Yeah, it is a long process. But I think one key to that is manage to have a certain freedom, a certain autonomy to make decision. And of course, you must be responsible with that decision. Only with the autonomy can you prove your capability and the ability to make decision.
Maybe one last question to summarize that up. It has been a very successful journey so far. What keeps you still up at night?
What still keeps me up at night? So Rabity is like my baby from the very first step when no one knows about it. And now there's a certain people who knows about it. But my dream is how to bring Rabity to a lot more children and parents and to like across the border. At the moment, the fashion industry in Vietnam is dealing with great challenge, which is the competitors from overseas, mostly from China. We have no other business at the moment. Like the competitor is universal, international. So what keeps me awake is how Rabity can stand out in that very tough competition. How can we win the customer hearts once again versus big and very experienced, have a lot of resources competitors.
So the journey never ends. And that concludes our journey today. Our episode was about from zero to hero, how brands are built, especially for startups. We learned a lot about Rabity Kids Fashion from founder Hai. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.